feel like I'm caught between a lion and its lunch. And I have serious video envy, but I do have a video to share with you. So good afternoon. So I set up the enterprise business of 2 Degrees about 5 years ago now. We've built up a number of international clients and a community of about 50,000 members in that time period. And I suppose in essence, we've been doing what this conference is exploring. We're helping to deliver sustainable business impacts by enabling the clients and the people that we work with to put knowledge into action. And we call this process, or this approach, fully linked collaboration. I was very interested to hear the collaboration word being mentioned previously, because it's at the core. And fully linked collaboration is really a slightly simplified, less of a mouthful than what was described on the program, but it's the same thing. So I'm going to explain a bit about or shed some light on what fully linked collaboration is, who's doing it, why we think it's necessary, how it works, and where we think it's leading. So fully linked collaboration is a term we use to describe a value chain in which all the organizations are connected to one another in a web of knowledge sharing. Sounds very grand, but it does enable collaboration to happen at scale to deliver these impacts. It uses technology to support effective online and offline communications between thousands of people. It needs a process to drive that exchange of knowledge towards the outcome, and it needs people with the skills and the tools and the know-how to facilitate the right conversations. To explain it, I want you to imagine if you could bring all of those stakeholders together. So perhaps your supply base, your entire supply base, if you're a major manufacturer or a major retailer or a government organization, you could bring them all into one virtual room, even the hard to reach people, the operations managers, the site managers, the engineers, the specialists, within an atmosphere of trust where they're empowered to work together 24/7, 365, and where they can solve problems together, share insights, and explore best practices. Well, in effect, that's what we're seeing happening. And we're, if you like, using fully linked collaboration to transform the performance of a supply base by changing the way it works together. And I think this is similar to the sort of description you were making, George. This move away from single point transactions to a highly scalable linked web. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples, one from retail and one from financial services that we're working at the moment. The retail one is the ASDA program. It's called the ASDA Sustain and Save Exchange. It's been running for nearly 3 years now. It involves nearly 10 billion euros of retail sales covered by the members of the exchange. There's over 1,000 people, and they're aiming for a 1 billion euro saving in terms of resource efficiency in that supply base. And the second is the RBS Innovation Gateway, which we launched with RBS in March of this year. And it involves hundreds of innovators coming together with ideas that can transform the energy and resource efficiency of the RBS estate, which is about 2,500 buildings around the world. So I'm going to show you a video. This is the tech challenge and the video envy, but listen to these guys.
I think for us the main aim was actually to share knowledge, to see what we could learn, to see where we could help others, but also to build a range of contacts of similar experts across the industry in this field, so that they could share together and learn from each other. And it has delivered that for us.
The more you engage with the people on the system, you get familiar with them, you get to know them, you can email them either inside or outside the system, so you get quick answers and you can bounce ideas off them. We're trying to do this, we've achieved this, have you got any better ideas? And by doing that we have seen some benefits to us.
We've seen benefits across all areas of our business, but the involvement with ASDA and this ASDA programme has actually helped stimulate new ideas within our business and taking ideas from other suppliers as well through the collaborative process that it is.
For any other supplier, I would absolutely thoroughly recommend it. I mean, fundamentally, there are no downsides because Barry has delivered on his promise that actually this is to help suppliers benefit, lower costs, get more efficient, and he's actually not looking for a share of those savings. So the reality, therefore, is that there is no downside to suppliers.
We've all got a common responsibility, really, in doing the right things for our customers and also doing the right things for the environment. And this is certainly a great way of doing the right thing and generating financial savings.
I can contact my opposites in big companies and ask them a question and they'll answer it. And if they ask me a question, I'll answer it. There's no intercompany style, we can't tell you this, can't tell you that. It's gone. And that's just exchanges which to wipe that out. I mean, I've invited Green Corps to come around our site to look at LED lighting we've got. I've never actually had this exchange. And vice versa. Our food have helped us with looking at the light that we've got in the lighting. They've also helped us with centrifugal technology for separating water. We just wouldn't have had that without this exchange. It's a phenomenal tool, actually. A lot of people maybe at first thought that it's maybe a bit of a gimmick or a money-making venture for ASDA. It's certainly not. It's a tool that I never thought would exist, but now it does exist. It's a tool I don't want to lose.
There's a nice phrase at the end there, unprompted. It's a fully committed program. It's well established. It's growing. And I think you can hopefully pick up a few things from that video. It is suppliers working with suppliers to drive out best practices and to solve each other's problems. Barry Williams is the Chief Marketing Officer for ASDA Food. And he set this principle which says, look, if we surface money, cost saving, resource efficiency opportunities in this program, and you share that information, we won't come after you for those savings. He's recognizing that for this to work, those savings have to be made. When they are made, the benefits are going to filter through. It is going to become a more competitive supply base. Suppliers will get the returns on their investment, become more competitive, and they will be more competitive as a provider of food to their customers. So that's the ASDA program. Now, I might have a little bit of a challenge here, but I want to just quickly take you to show you the gateway. Can you see it? Yeah, okay. So this is the entrance to the gateway, if it loads up. I think it's a bit locked. I might skip this in the interest of lunch. Go back to this. Let me explain to it. So what the idea of the Innovation Gateway is. The business is providing access to its estate for innovations that can contribute towards this goal, which is described as being the challenge of the next 75%. So a number of the businesses that we've heard from have got in plan innovations that can deliver the 25 to 35% energy or resource efficiency within the next 5 years or so. This is trying to look beyond that and say, who's got an innovation that can go after the next 75%? And we're opening up our estate so that you, as an innovator, get to test it, get to try it, get a customer. If it works, you get access to market. So it's meeting a need of an innovator to find an informed customer. The innovations are reviewed by a panel. I think we have one of the panelists in the room, Greg. So it's an independent panel that can give feedback and can start to filter out for the bank the innovations that they can see being well applied to their estate. And the sort of innovations being submitted range from intelligent hand dryers through to rooftop farming systems. There's quite a wide range. But to say that in the first six, 7 weeks of opening the gateway, we managed to reach out to something like 70,000 innovators, entrepreneurs in the UK and beyond. We persuaded over 500 of them to actually formally join and participate in the gateway. We had over 140 innovation ideas submitted, reviewed by the panel. Half of those were shortlisted, and 20% of those shortlisted ideas were at the kind of prototype, early development stage. And that was within less than 2 months. So clearly it's meeting some sort of a need to provide an access to customers for all these great inventors and innovators. So I'm going to explain a bit about why it's necessary. And there's really probably a couple of perspectives here. There's some strategic benefits to fully linked collaboration. But I personally believe that we're starting to win the argument around the link between long-term environmentally, socially, or well-governed, the ESG performance of a business does correlate with the long-term value of the business. And a lot of investors, asset owners are realizing this. So what we have to do is affect the practice, the stuff in the middle. How do you drive out operational costs, build stronger relationships with your supply base, secure supply, I think was another kind of big issue in the agri-food business. If you can build relationships with the better producers who are farming in more sustainable ways, then you're going to secure up your access to food in a world that needs ever more food, and where we have a growing middle class, wealthy population in China that wants to buy the same food that we've been eating. So these issues are very, very real, and are the drivers of why people are using fully linked collaboration approaches to deal with this. I described some of the numbers behind the RBS program. I think some of the numbers behind the ASDA program are equally quite significant. We estimate that the suppliers involved invested 30 to 50 million euros in resource efficiency last year. And then the other side of it is each month, every member there's about 1,000 people in this, and there's about 400 companies, visits the exchange 2 to 3 times. You get about 50 issues raised, and each issue raised gets on average about 10 responses. It's a very active, problem-solving, knowledge-sharing, driven community that's being built. So we sort of simplified this into a rule of thumb, which suggests that for every £1 that the client is spending, the members of the supply-based community are investing 20, and they're saving 40 over 5 years. So there's a real economic database and evidence set coming to show that this is actually worth doing. It's an effective way of unlocking those sorts of savings. So I want to very briefly explain a little bit about how it works, because it requires some pretty active facilitation. I want to draw the analogy of the school disco. We have these people called community managers, and you remember school disco where you've got one half of the room sat looking at the other half of the room and nobody's quite connecting and dancing in the middle. Well, the community manager's role essentially is to bring people together, get people dancing, use the systems behind the platform or in the platform to understand what is relevant to each party. What are they trying to do? What's the problem that they're trying to solve? What's the problem that they have solved that they can share with somebody else? Where's the common interest so that we can get everybody dancing? It's also a case of you can build these platforms, but they won't come. There's a lot of process and effort needed to bring people into these communities, engage them, so recruiting them, finding out who they are. A very interesting challenge in one of our clients is they have a supply base of many thousands of suppliers, but they don't know how to contact them easily. They don't know email addresses. They certainly don't know the contacts of the site managers or the technical managers. So one of our jobs is to create the ability to communicate people, to recruit them in, get them enrolled in the program, and then we can start to survey very efficiently. What do they know? What are the problems they've got? What are the solutions they've got? What are the challenges that they want to resolve? And we can start to facilitate and drive that exchange of knowledge. And then once you've built this community and they trust in the aims of the community, you can start to enable some pretty interesting outcomes. You can start to run collaborative projects because you can access people all the time. You can find the expertise you need to solve a problem relatively easily. You can form things like buying clubs where you can start to aggregate the demand for a particular technology. We had a great example of this running in a program we run for Tesco, where we're buying many millions of square feet of LED lighting to retrofit into the warehouses and facilities of the suppliers to Tesco. Saves them about 25% on the capital cost, as well as driving out the associated energy savings and carbon savings. So there's a lot you can do once you get these things rolling. It's a data-driven process. The database that sits behind the surface of the website is quite extensive. It tells us where each member of the community is in terms of this journey from being aware of the program, joining it, getting involved, contributing, answering somebody's question, posing a question, and getting full value out of the community. There's a database that sits behind this that informs that process. And some of the results are really quite interesting. What we've found, one of the most sort of startling results, is if we can get somebody joining a community to contribute something within the first 3 weeks of coming in, they will continue to contribute regularly to that program sort of forever, provided there's obviously relevant stuff to get involved in. So that insight is really critical in driving engagement, because the last thing you want to be doing is inviting people into a community and they all just sort of lurk there. And maybe we've all had some experience of joining a group online and we've probably forgotten what the password is to get back in again. These things don't work unless they're driven towards a purpose and actively managed. So a comment then about where it's going. Well, there's really probably two things that we see that we're investing in quite heavily. The first area is around the use of data. And we've got some very interesting partners that we're working with that can bring data engines behind these collaboration programs. So we can start to see the energy performance of a factory in Scotland that's part of a supply base, and we can start to benchmark the relative energy intensity of a factory or even a process, so that we can start to understand what the best practice is, and then we can set up a forum or a discussion group or a site visit or something to go and have a look at that best practice and get it disseminated. So these data engines are coming in slices. We're not trying to boil the ocean and measure every aspect of a factory's performance, but we can go in and say, tell us what your data is, or fax us your energy bill, and we'll translate that into a dashboard that we can use in the program. We think that's going to extend. We've got pilots running with partners around factories in Bangladesh, as well as factories in Scotland, around using data to drive performance. The other, I think, thing that we're investing in and that we see this leading to is around the scope. We've got a very exciting program that is in pilot at the moment with the Irish Food Board, BEER. And what they are doing is bringing the entire food sector into the Origin Green platform. And this is an accreditation process to, if you like, raise the sustainable business performance of the entire food sector in Ireland, certify it, and then get them to drive this sharing of best practice and deliver against this thing, so that Ireland becomes a more competitive supplier of food to the world, not just to Tesco, but to other markets. So we think that the building in of data and the scope of what fully linked collaboration can do is becoming a very interesting and exciting area. So thank you. Any questions?